Hello and welcome to Chair Yoga. Today we're going to hip walk in our chair just to kind of build some strength in the hips and perhaps find some balance in our bodies while we're in the chair and well supported. So join me for hip walk. We're going to start sitting tall in our chair, having our shoulders over our hips and our ears over our shoulders. Maybe glance down or close your eyes for a moment. Support yourself on your thighs with your hands and just breathe here. Nice deep long breath and exhale slowly. In through the nose if you can and out through the nose. Notice the subtle movements through the body as you breathe. Let's take 2 more breaths here. Feeling the support of the chair. On your next exhale, open the eyes. So today I'm wearing sneakers. I like to have the solidness of my sneakers on the earth when I'm working in the chair, because my chair is a little bit high, just a little, that it makes my feet float a little. So if you find that to be true, wear your sneakers or your shoes or grab a blanket and place it under your feet so that you have that support in the feet also. So sitting here and thinking about breathing up and down the spine, what does that feel like? How does that make you feel? Now, if you have issues with your spine, you want to be mindful of that today and make sure that you don't work through any pain. So we'll begin by loosening up the body. So let's just take our wrists and roll them around a little, moving the hands, opening and closing the fingers a little. And then we'll do the same with the feet. So we lift and we make circles with our toes here. And then in the other direction. Just a little bit of movement in the body, other side, and back. And then placing the feet down and resting the hands again. Let's roll those shoulders. Get big movement here. So it's like we're trying to make a circle with our top of our shoulder here. And you'll notice the movement mostly in your back. Let's roll them back and down. And this kind of stretches the muscles in the front of the chest. Do you feel it? It's small, it's subtle. So we have to sometimes just kind of know that it's happening. And then again, rest the hands. Turn the head one side and back to center and then to the other side. Just go your natural range of motion here. We're just trying to warm up that spine. And then come center, let's do cat-cow. So we round the shoulders forward, tuck the chin, draw the belly in. And then lift, soften the belly, and drop the shoulders down your back. Rounding, exhaling. Inhale, lifting, and stacking. Couple more cat-cows with me here. And then sitting nice and tall. Once again, I'm going to ask you to close your eyes. And I want you to visualize your sit bones sinking down into your chair. Feel the heaviness of your hips and your body as they rest and are supported by the chair. And notice your spine as you breathe. We really can't see our spine. It's really in the middle of our bodies, or you can sometimes see it along the back, but we don't have eyes in the back of our heads, so we use our sense of visualizing. And see if you can't sense that as you breathe in, that breath, that energy goes upward, lengthening the spine. And as you exhale, it softens the spine, softens the muscles around the spine. So take a moment and just visualize the hips in the chair and the spine rising and softening. And then once again, open your eyes. We're going to separate the feet a little bit further and maybe take them out an inch or two. Bring the hands just above the knee and draw the belly in, lengthen through the front side of the body. Keep the space between the pelvic and the sternum and just lean a little forward. Doesn't have to be far. And once you're here, I want your gaze to be downward towards the floor. Not down towards your feet, but outward, maybe 8 to 10 inches, or maybe a couple yards out in front of you, depending on your lean. And once again, breathe up and down that spine and visualize with me that as you breathe in, the head reaches up and forward a little bit more. Each inhale. And then soften as you exhale. And once again, lengthen through the spine using the breath. And soften. One more nice breath here in our forward fold. And then using the strength of your arms, push up, sit tall, and pause for a moment. And now we'll do a hip rock. So bring the feet into neutral so they're in line with your hips. And just lean to one side and lean to the other. Notice how one of your sit bones gets a little lighter in the chair. You're actually lifting it. You might not feel the lift because we have flesh all around our sit bones. So we still are making some contact with the chair in most cases. All right? But just notice how the weight shifts. Now, right now, I'm leaning from side to side. Let's change that. So if I lift my right hip, instead of leaning to the left, I'm going to lean a little towards that hip I lifted and then let it go back down. Notice my heels coming off the floor too. So I'm lifting the left hip. Now instead of leaning to the right, I'm going to lean a little towards that hip. And again, this is so subtle. I'm exaggerating here a little bit so you could see some movement, but you might not see movement. You might just feel it. So the shoulder and the head drop towards the hip you're lifting, and you're going side to side, lifting the weight off that hip, making a C shape, if you will, with your spine. And let's come back to neutral and pause. Bring the feet back in line with your hips, and let's lift that right foot and the left arm, and then lower back down. Other side. Not going anywhere, just lifting, just feeling the shift, not even lifting the hip, just feeling the shift as we lift the foot and move the opposite arm. Couple more. And then pause. So now I'm going to come forward just an inch or two so that I can support my spine with my hips. I'm going to push into the left foot and I'm going to lift the right hip. And again, leaning towards the lifted hip and let it go back down. Other side. Pushing into the right foot, lifting the left hip and back and down. And just kind of push down with the left, lift that right hip. And then push down with the right and lift that left hip. And make sure that you're leaning towards the hip that you're lifting, right? Just a little. Very subtle movement. Good. Pause and take a couple breaths. Now we're going to add on to that. So we're going to push into the left foot, lift the right hip, lean towards that right hip, and lift the right foot, and then back and down. Other side, pushing into the right foot, lifting the foot on the left and somewhat lifting that hip, right? Or taking at least the pressure off of it as we go side to side like we're walking in our chair. Leaning towards the foot you're lifting, the hip you're lifting, putting pressure in the foot that's standing on the earth. And you might notice, as I am right now, noticing one side is doing something a little different, just teeny little. I feel a difference. I don't see it, I just feel it. Let's come to neutral and take a pause here for a moment. Now let's add the arm. So we're going to push down with the left foot, lift that right hip, right foot, left arm. Let's see if we can do it. Stay on the pushing down into the left, lift that right hip, and see if you can lift that left arm at the same time. Let's try a few on the left. So push down with the right foot, lift the left foot, left hip, and push forward with the right arm. You feel it? And you're countering by just kind of taking the spine towards the hip that's lifting. Well, let's pause. Take a couple breaths. And now we move. So we're going to press down into the left foot. We're going to lift that right hip, lean towards it. Maybe the left arm comes up just a little. It doesn't have to come up far. And we're going to move that foot just a few inches forward. And now my hips are at a diagonal. So I'm going to right away switch over, push into the right foot, and lift that left hip. I'll do it again. Pressing down with the left, lift the right, come forward, and then right away, the other side. Let's take it back, okay? So right hip goes back, left hip goes back. I'm leaning that shoulder towards the hip that lifts. Let's hip walk some more. It's a lot to think about. Press down into the left foot. Right hip comes up and we tilt our body towards that right hip, lift the foot, lift the left arm, take a small step forward. And then the other side. So now we're going to press down into the right, lift the left, and walk forward. And making that little bit of effort in the spine to keep it long and tall and slight lean towards the hip that we're lifting. And we come forward. And what we want to develop is that forward motion. So we don't want to rock forward in the chair. We want to walk in the chair. And that means our hips have to move forward and back. So let's take them back. Here we go. Right hip back, left hip back, right hip, left hip. And notice I'm tilting my head. Maybe I'm moving my eyes a little. More happens than we really think about, doesn't it? But it's fun to pause here in our chair yoga and practice these things and think about all this happening. Let's do it one more time before we end our class today. So push into the left foot. Left arm comes up, right hip. Shoulder and leg come forward. And then push into the right foot, lean towards the left, and lift that left foot. Walking forward, rocking the body forward, not back, not side to side. Let's go back. So it's this forward and back movement that's going to build that balance in our walking. How did you do? Maybe you want to come back to this video and practice that a few times and build the hip strength, build the leg strength, and coordinate that movement of opposite foot, opposite hand, and that will help with our balance also. So let's close out with a little stretch here. We're going to bring the arms up overhead, lengthen through the spine, tuck the chin, and just breathe from the tailbone to the crown. And as you exhale, bring the hands back and down. Let's do that again. Inhale. Think of that breath going all the way up through the crown of the head. And then releasing back and down one last time right here. And soften down. Support yourself on your thighs. Lift your heels. You can lift one and then the other, or both at the same time. And then lift your toes. And then rock heels to toes, heels to toes. And then come to a pause. Close your eyes. Looking downward just slightly and softening through your body. And allowing the breath now to expand into the belly and back. Deep, even breaths and long exhales. And see if you can breathe in through the nose and out through the nose in this slow, mindful breath. And then bringing the palms together, we rub the palms, create warmth. Hover it over our eyes. Just pause for a moment, feel the release of the shoulders downward, and then open your eyes into the hands and bring your hands to your heart and bow to your body for its fabulous hip walk today. Join me again for another chair yoga. Namaste.